So go straight to David, actually, because he's next to you. So we'll do that. This will be fairly fast, David. So. He said, I feel like my willingness to feel my own emotions is my greatest block to the way. Is this true? If so, why don't I want to feel when I've experienced the benefits in the past? If it's not true, then what is my greatest block? So you're hedging your bets either way there.
I always do that.
Yeah. Which is one reason why you're struggling to feel emotion, actually. But your primary problem is still your addictions with women. This shuts you down quite intensely, and as a result of that, see, if you don't remove addictions, you won't expose emotion. The point, if we can just sort of discuss briefly the point of addiction, because remember, if we have an addiction inside of ourselves, there's usually a point to it. There's a reason for it, right? And this is the main issue you face: is that you're using your relationship with women to suppress emotion, which actually is not beneficial to your relationship either. But this is what you're doing. So here you are. Well, let's draw you the other way, because I just drew Saoirse this way, so I'll draw you this way. Right. A bit thin, but anyway. So again, you've got physical body. Better do that first. Spirit, body, soul. So there's the character of David. Okay. Now in David's soul, there's a feeling that worth has to come from the sexual expression of women. You understand what I mean by that?
Yeah.
This was set up because of, again, your upbringing and how you were brought up. You have had women in when you were a child, basically in an emotionally incestuous relationship with you. So I'm talking about adult women in an emotionally incestuous relationship with you. So now your worth is established by having sexual expression from women. So you need this sexual expression from a woman in order to gain worth. So what's going to happen under these circumstances is the more you engage a relationship, unless you address this particular emotion, the more you engage a relationship, the more suppressed you're going to feel emotionally. Does that make sense? Because the addiction is getting met. So when you meet an addiction, so if there's an addiction and you meet it, when you meet the addiction, it makes the soul-based feeling feel satisfied. If the soul-based feeling is satisfied, the emotion that is the hole, if you like, the thing that's void, feels like it's getting filled up. And therefore, you're not going to find yourself feeling emotion as a result. Now, many of your emotional addictions are relating to this particular issue, so that means that a lot of your emotion is going to get shut down using this method, right? You'll also eventually exhaust a woman with your sexual demands, right? Does it make sense to you? Does it make any sense?
Yeah, no,
is it what's happening?
Sense. Yeah, it's definitely what's happening.
Yeah. The problem with interacting with you sexually from a woman's perspective who doesn't want this is that she will feel like the only reason why you want her is for the sex. The only reason why you want her, you're not sort of valuing her. Or she will feel like she will have a codependent addiction, which is she needs the man to have this sexual desire for her in order for her to be validated. One of those two things will be happening. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yep. Now, that is the major reason why your emotions aren't flowing. Yep. And because your addictions are getting met, there's no need for the emotions to flow because you already feel they're all getting satisfied, and it also helps you become almost unaware of the emotions. Yep.
So that's related. Well, I've felt this sort of feeling of contentness lately, like, there's no drive to go forward because I've hit this.
Correct. You're getting your addictions met. There's no need to challenge it. Obviously, Saoirse's meeting you at some of these addictions. There's no need to challenge it. You feel if you challenge it, you challenge the relationship, which possibly is true, but it depends on Saoirse's feelings about that as to how much the relationship is challenged. But you feel quite content, and as a result, and there's also not any drive to continue your own progression under those circumstances. So when there's no drive to continue our own progression, it's usually because our addictions are being satisfied. It's when our addictions are no longer satisfied that we start to have a drive to progress again. Now, you can do that in a relationship, but you've only ever done it outside of a relationship up until now. So the only times you've ever progressed up until now, up until before you began a relationship with Saoirse, the only time you ever progressed was when you weren't in a relationship and the addictions weren't getting met. And therefore you felt some pain, and therefore the need to change. And this demonstrates an actual underlying issue too, my friend. And that is that while it demonstrates a fair degree of selfishness in a way, in the sense that I'm only going to progress while I'm in pain. As soon as my pain stops, I stop progressing.
I've thought about that exact same thing.
Yeah.
What you said recently.
Yeah. Now that's an indication that it's only the pain that drove you to progress in the first place.
Yeah, there's a fair bit there.
Yeah. So what happens for the majority of us, we're in some pain, that motivates some progression, but as soon as the pain stops, we're no longer motivated to progress. Yeah. And that's an indication that actually it's not about relationship with God. It's actually about relationship with our pain and the avoidance of it. You follow? Yep. So your relationship with God hasn't really begun in some ways, right? So maybe Saoirse, your question, Saoirse should have asked that question for you too, because in a lot of ways you've only progressed up until this point because of the desire for a relationship with a woman.
Not because I want a relationship with God.
Yes. Yep.
So what I need to go back and look at really is where I've developed that need for getting my worth from a woman, like that relationship with my mum and other women when I was a child. Yeah,
you know what your mum's like.
Yeah.
I'm sure Saoirse even now knows what she's like and the hooks that mum has into you. Do you find, Saoirse, do you mind me asking, do you feel a bit jealous of his relationship with mum sometimes? Or do you sort of just tolerate the investment that he has in it?
No, I don't feel jealous.
Yeah.
I haven't really thought about it.
You know the main reason why we don't is because there's almost this thing on the planet that a mum's relationship with her son, you tolerate that, right? And the father's relationship with the daughter, that's special. You don't take that away even if you're married to the person. Do you follow me? And that is a big problem in the sense that from God's perspective, the two halves are meant to join together, and that needs to be the primary relationship, right? And yet for most of us, the primary relationship remains the relationship between mother and son. So this is the mother, between mother and son, and between the daughter's father and herself. And so when these two get together, and I'm not suggesting these are the same parents, these are different parents obviously, and what happens is you can see what starts playing out, a lot of things playing out in the relationship, right? And it's very, very confusing when it comes to problems being solved in the relationship, because in order for these two people to be together, this person must tolerate this relationship and this person must tolerate this relationship. And when I say tolerate, I mean view it as important, like view it as important as usually the parents view it. And it's quite damaging to a soulmate relationship, actually, to do that. You want to, the primary person in your relationship, you want to be the other half, you know, not mummy or daddy. Yep. So for yourself, Dave, that's an issue that you face. Now, in some times in the past you've rebelled against it. You know, you feel, and that's what's driven you to drugs in the past and so forth. This deep level of sadness that you have with your mum and the oppression that you feel actually from her. But unfortunately, there's this aspect of worth that's hooked into the problem. So now, instead of getting your worth met from mum, you find a lady who you can get your worth met through. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.